Hello liftoff fans, we are back with another video about space and SpaceX. In today's episode, we will tell you about SpaceX willing to fly a Starship to orbit for the first time early this year, if all goes according to plan. Stay tuned. SpaceX is targeting January for its first Starship orbital launch attempt, SpaceX founder and CEO Elon Musk said on Wednesday, November the 17th. And that initial landmark leap will ideally be followed by a number of others shortly thereafter. Starship consists of two elements, both of which are designed to be fully and rapidly reusable. A huge first-staged booster known as Super Heavy and a 165-foot tall spacecraft called Starship. Both are powered by SpaceX's next-generation Raptor engine, 6 in the case of Starship and 29 for Super Heavy. At the moment at least, the booster will eventually sport 33 Raptors, Musk has said. SpaceX is developing this ambitious transportation system to get people and payloads to the Moon, Mars, and other distant destinations. Ultimately, Starship is designed to be a generalized transportation mechanism for the greater solar system. SpaceX has launched a handful of test flights with Starship prototypes from its Starbase facility, which is near the South Texas village of Boca Chica. But those hops reached a maximum altitude of about 6 miles and featured vehicles with just 3 engines. The upcoming orbital test flight will involve a Starship prototype called SN20, which has the full complement of 6 Raptors and a 29-engine Super Heavy known as Booster 4. The duo will lift off from Starbase. Booster 4 will splash down shortly after liftoff in the Gulf of Mexico, but SN20 will make one loop around the Earth and come down in the Pacific Ocean near the Hawaiian island of Kauai. SpaceX could not launch the mission right now, even if it wanted to, because the US Federal Aviation Administration is currently conducting an environmental assessment of the orbital launch activities at Starbase. But we shouldn't expect a picture-perfect flight, Musk has said. There's a lot of risks associated with the first launch. So I would not say that it is likely to be successful, but I think we'll make a lot of progress, Musk said. That envisioned progress will lead to roughly a dozen launches over the course of the year, which should prove out the Starship system enough for it to begin operational missions in 2023. Testing on Booster 4 and other booster tanks began on December the 20th at Starbase. Although thanks to a last-minute Elon tweet storm, this is now the second most exciting piece of news. Elon's tweets have revealed brand new ship changes, booster progress, and Raptor 2 developments. Testing. Last month, Booster 4 was sitting next to the orbital launch mount, awaiting a liftoff from SpaceX's RL-11000. Notably, this will be one of the last times a booster is lifted onto the mount by anything other than the chopsticks, as SpaceX has made more progress on lifting and catching Super Heavy mechanisms of the Starship program. The lift itself went off without a hitch and was successfully disconnected from the crane on the 15th of December. On the 17th of December, Booster 4 underwent its first pressure test and passed with flying colors, a good first step in the testing campaign. A pressure test is where a limited amount of propellant is fed into the vehicle and the internal propellant tanks are brought up to flight pressure. It's a test designed to check for leaks and weaknesses within the tanks with limited risk involved. The Booster 4 test was not the only test that occurred, with the Booster 2.1 test tank also undergoing what has been described as a can crusher test. The crown of the test rig was lifted and placed on top of Booster 2.1 on the 14th of December, with the rigging installed over the next few days. The test itself is meant to provide data on the compressive force that this section of the booster can experience. With this data, SpaceX will be able to make decisions on any improvements, if needed, for commercial flight with heavy payloads. Design changes. On the 18th of December, SpaceX CEO Elon Musk posted a GIF on Twitter showing a gimbal test of the Center 9 engines of Booster 4. The Center 9 engine's gimbal to provide control authority, the ability to turn, to the booster during flight, allowing the vehicles to change its trajectory during flight and recovery operations. Musk also spent time replying to tweets providing exciting new updates about the vehicles. The first, most notable change was the future ships will now have 9 engines instead of the current 6. This upgrade comes in the form of 3 vacuum engines that will provide extra performance for the vehicle when in the vacuum of space. To accompany this upgrade, the ship tanks are being stretched, although it is expected this will translate into the whole ship vehicle being increased in height to avoid payload bay loss. Elon also mentioned that the ship's current form isn't even its final form, although pretty close, when replying to John Krause on Twitter. This is not surprising to anyone that has followed the Starship program, or SpaceX as a whole, for a while now. They are quick to make improvements and changes quickly and consistently instead of larger revisions periodically. Musk revealed that the next booster will have 33 engines, with 13 gimballing engines in the center. This is expected to be in a 3-10-20 engine setup, with the center 13 engines having 15 degrees of freedom, up from the 13 degrees of freedom currently allowed by Booster 4. The most surprising news of all was Elon's mention that SpaceX is still targeting the first flight using Flight 420, Booster 4 and Ship 20. While many were quick to rejoice, it's important to note that Elon and SpaceX have consistently been optimistic about their timelines and expectations. Due to the quickly changing nature of the program, it would not be surprising to see this change as Booster 4 undergoes testing. For Booster 4 to fly, everything needs to be perfect, including a full 29-engine static fire of the world's most powerful rocket. So while it's good to be optimistic, it's also important to remember that things can change extremely quickly in this program. SpaceX already has some customers for Starship. For example, Japanese billionaire Yusaku Maezawa booked the vehicle for a flight around the moon, with liftoff targeted for 2023. And earlier this year, NASA selected Starship as the initial human landing system for its Artemis program, which aims to establish a sustainable human presence on and around the moon by the end of the decade. The first crewed Artemis moon landing will take place no earlier than 2025, NASA Chief Bill Nelson has recently said. The agency had officially been shooting for 2024. Over the long haul, SpaceX intends to use Starship to help colonize Mars, thereby making humanity a multiplanetary species, a long-held and oft-stated ambition of Musk's. Starship could even help humanity planet hop from Mars to the dwarf planet Ceres, the largest object in the asteroid belt, to the moons of Jupiter, as long as we set up some propellant depots along the way. And in this grander vision, it wouldn't just be a few Starship craft making such journeys. I think in order for life to become multiplanetary, we'll need maybe 1,000 Starships or something like that, Musk has said. Scaling up production to meet the envisioned demand, especially for engines, given that 33 will power each Super Heavy, will be a huge challenge. But SpaceX is already gearing up to meet it, Musk said, noting that the company is now building the factory to make lots of Starships and make lots of engines in parallel. That factory is in McGregor, Texas, where SpaceX does its engine testing. And that's all the information we have today. I hope you enjoyed the video. If so, give it a like thumb, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your friends and family. If you want to see more, then hit the notification button. I'll see you next time.